also started to burn out a little bit in life. So I didn't finish anything in January. Stats don't lie, usually. Hey, what's up? My name is Daniela and welcome to a new video. So in this video I am here to finally wrap up my 2024 reading, and the agenda is that first I have some Goodreads stats, then I have my own stats. We're also going to go through how I did with my reading goals, and to wrap up this video I also want to mention some of my worst books of the year, because there will be a separate video about my best books, but I didn't have that many worst books of the year because, yeah, spoiler alert, I had a pretty good reading year, but there are still a couple of books that I just want to rant about a little bit, so that will be at the end of the video. Okay, so without further ado, let's look at the stats. I have my laptop here so we can get right into it. So first things first, basic stats. In 2024 I read 52 books, which at the beginning of the year it didn't look like I would hit this number. Well, we will see. The shortest book I read was A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, which only has 132 pages. And the longest book was I Captured a Castle by Dodie Smith, that has 576 pages. So as you can see, I didn't really read super long books. Average book length 323 pages, so yeah, clearly shorter books. It doesn't really feel that way, but I don't know, stats don't lie, usually. The most shelved book was Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang, that is not surprising, and the least shelved was Split Level by Sandy Buritsberger, which was a NetGalley book, so understandable that not many people know that. My average rating for 2024 was 4.3, which is that is a little bit bananas, like that is so good. Highest rated on Goodreads, Death Note Volume 2. Yeah, it's a great book. And yeah, that is all for the Goodreads stats, I think. Let's look at my own stats, because those are more fun, at least for me. So first we have the read in a month stat, and yeah, as you can see, I wasn't really consistent with reading last year, let's say. So I didn't finish anything in January, and then yeah, the whole first half of the year just reading a couple of books. Then in June I participated in the Amazing Readathon hosted by Brie from 4 Paws and a Book, yeah, which really kickstarted me. I didn't read all of the books that we were supposed to read in that readathon, but I read 7, which as you can see was more than in the previous months. Then it went down a little bit again, and then yeah, November was a great month. I also read a whole series that will be mentioned later, and yeah, in December I read a lot of Christmas books, and now I'm kind of more or less back on track. So as you can see, the fact that I ended up reading 52 books is mostly because of the second half of the year, and yeah, I was really happy to end up on such a nice number without even planning it. Then we have the star rating. So we have already established that I had a high average rating. I had a really good reading year, so no 1 star, only 2 star, 3 star, and the rest is 4 and 5 stars, so yeah, I can't really complain. As for the audience, so I didn't read any children or middle grade books in 2024. Usually I read a couple, but this year I didn't. For young adult that was 19 books, and for adult that was 33 books, so yeah, that is pretty typical. Even though, yeah, okay, let's say it, I read the whole Death Note series in 2024, which is 12 volumes. It is young adult, so it is skewing the results a little bit, and it will skew more of the statistics to come. But yeah, I still read some other young adult, and I had a good time with it, clearly. In terms of the genre, so the winning genre is romance, and yeah, to think that a few years ago I didn't even have romance as a separate genre, and I just lumped everything in contemporary, general contemporary, because I just didn't read that many romance. Well, things have changed. Romance is now my #1 genre. The second one is unusual, again because of Death Note, that I categorize as kind of thriller. It has more genres because they're like sci-fi and kind of creatures, so maybe like a little bit of fantasy, but I think the main vibe, the main mood of the series is that it's really thrillery. And there's also like the mystery, so yeah, I categorized it as such. And mostly because of that, crime, mystery, thriller is my second read genre, which usually is not the case. Third one is contemporary, just general contemporary, that is more general than romance. And the fourth is non-fiction. So non-fiction is usually like the second one, so yeah, it was bumped down a little bit, but I still read 6 non-fiction books, so not bad. And then a couple of fantasy, sci-fi, historical, classic, and 1 dystopian. So I think usually I read a little bit more of fantasy and sci-fi, but yeah, this year was a little bit different. So for the year published, I was a little bit pleased with it, even though it could be better. So basically, when the Goodreads Choice Awards came out, I realized that I didn't read any of the books that were nominated. And I was like, oh my god, didn't I read any books from 2024? But I did. They just weren't nominated, which is a crime, I would say. But yeah, I did read 4 books from 2024, so like at least something. And then 5 books from 2023. Also quite a lot of books from 2022. 10 books. And then the biggest portion is between 2010 and 2021, which was a bit surprising. This is not Death Note, because Death Note is like 2004 and onward. So yeah, just a bunch of books from this decade, randomly. I don't know. And then a couple of books before I was born. And then we have the new to me author stat, and this is interesting because it is split exactly in the middle. For series versus a standalone, so 27 books were a part of a series. I think Death Note played a role here, and yeah, 25 wasn't. So a little bit more series than standalones, which I would say is not that typical for me. But also, like, now that I started reading way more romance in the last couple of years, a lot of the romance books are like in these loose series. So basically, even though I'm not the biggest fantasy reader, the fact that I'm reading romance also means I end up reading a lot more series, even though they're loose series. But yeah, still count as series. In terms of rereading, so I'm not the biggest rereader. I usually reread for practical reasons, so like when I want to continue with the series, so I read the previous volumes to refresh my memory. Or sometimes, yeah, I do reread my favorite books like from time to time. But I have only reread 5 books in 2024, so not that many. In terms of format, so I was really enjoying reading physical books last year. I ended up reading 2 audiobooks, which is progress from 2023, because that year I didn't read any, because yeah, I just majorly fell off that bandwagon. But yeah, now I think I'm getting a little bit more into it. I have a couple of books on my Audible. I think I really had to figure out which genres are good for me as audiobooks. I know that I probably won't be trying to listen to fantasy or even contemporary and romance for that matter. And yeah, what I really like to listen to is memoirs, sometimes like general non-fiction, because that I can focus on pretty well. And also, like, if it's a memoir and it's read by the author, then it's perfect. Like right now I am listening to The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop, and it is so amazing. So yeah, I definitely want to listen to some audiobooks. But yeah, in 2024 that was only 2, and then 6 ebooks, and mostly I was just enjoying reading physical books. For source, I was reading a lot of owned books, so that is the biggest chunk. But I also had like 14 library books, so that is also good. Then yeah, 2 Audible and 1 NetGalley. So that was for the stats. I have some more thoughts about them, but those will be like in my 2025 reading goals videos, because I always like to actually look at the stats from past year, and based on that, you know, sometimes you see a chart and you are like, well, this could be better, or I would like to change that. So I find that really helpful. But yeah, I will talk about the goals in another video. But now let's look at how I actually did with my 2024 reading goals. So I didn't feel like super ambitious or in the mood to set like super quantifiable ambitious goals last year. So basically the theme was like no quantifiable goals, except for the Goodreads challenge number, which I set really low. I set it at 24, and if you remember how my reading went like in the first half of the year on the chart, you might say that it was quite wise. But yeah, the reading picked up, so as I have said, I ended up reading 52. And then instead of setting goals, I just set some reading intentions, which are just like some goals, light, low-key goals. Just kind of more visual thinking than hard set goals. And one of the goals was utilize the library for my top picks, which I think I definitely did, So one of the intent behind this goal was that previously I ended up reading or like borrowing a lot of random books from the library just because they were there, and the result was that I was reading a bunch of random books that I wasn't that excited about. So yeah, I really wanted to be intentional and only checking out the books I'm really excited from the library instead of just borrowing random books, and I think I definitely did that. But I ended up making like some reading projects out of those, and in the end I enjoyed, I think, most of the or all of the books I borrowed from the library. So that was successful, I would say. It's always a bit hard to say if a goal that isn't quantifiable is successful or not, but yeah, in this case I would say it is. Then the next goal or intention was to catch up on 2023 releases and read some 2024 releases. So yeah, I did read some, but not as many as I would have liked. So yeah, I would definitely like to read more recent releases, so this is kind of like partially. The next one is continuing series, if it seems worth it. Yeah, I really like how that is worth it. I did continue in some series, like the romance series, some of the autumnal witches series, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, again, that wasn't a quantifiable goal, so I'm just going to say I did that. And the last intention was to check out more books by authors I have previously loved. So again, with some of the authors I did that. So yeah, I did that. That's definitely something I want to continue with. Let's say that I'm quite happy with how the intentions went. I also had some booktube plans, which is a little bit bittersweet because 2024 unfortunately wasn't a good year for YouTube, because I had just so much going on in life. Also started to burn out a little bit in life. So yeah, not that many things happened that I wanted to. But yeah, I wanted to do more live streams than in 2023, which I did, because in 2023 I did 2 live streams and in 2024 I did 5. It wasn't exactly what I had on mind. Definitely wanted to do more live streams, preferably like regular ones. But yeah, in 2024 I joined this organization that teaches women IT skills, and all of that is online for me. So I just spent so much time on Zoom calls. Like, it was either like 3.5 hours in the evenings or 8 hours on the weekend, and because of that I just didn't have the mental space to be like live anymore. So yeah, live streams, not many of them happened. I hope that more of them will happen this year. And then the second one was to finally film some ideas or bury them forever. I think I didn't film any of them that I had on mind, but I did film some other ones. Like, I started the book confusion series, and yeah, I just did some other ideas, and I still, like, I remember some of the ideas, and I might do them in 2025. Wait, I got confused for a second. But yeah, I guess I'm not burying them forever quite yet. And now let's talk about the worst books I read in 2024. As I said, I won't make a separate video about them because, one, there are only a couple, which is good, and second, I just don't want to give them any more energy than I have to. But I just want to briefly rant about them so I can get it off my chest, and then we can move on truly and fully. Okay, so the first book that I hated in 2024 was The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. And this really hit me in the feels because it felt like a betrayal, because previously I read a couple of books by Beth O'Leary, and The Fletcher definitely made it into the top books of some year, and then I quite enjoyed the rest of them. So to read this book and it being so horrible just really felt, you know, like a stab in the back. So this book is marketed as this really fun rom-com. It's a road trip, it's a second chance romance, and yeah, there's a road trip, but I definitely didn't find it that funny or enjoyable. So in the book we follow 2 main characters, Addie and what's his face even? Dylan. And Dylan is this rich kid and he wants to write poetry for a living, but it doesn't seem that he's doing that much for it. Addie is from a lower income family, and this becomes like the biggest conflict, one of the biggest, well, not the biggest, one of the biggest conflicts between them. And these two like randomly meet in France because Dylan goes there like to some chateau, and Addie actually works there as a housekeeper for the summer because like they know the owners. They strike up a romance, and at first this part in France like wasn't that horrible. Like they got together, they had some fun, like it was kind of okay. Then the summer ends, and like the natural conclusion would be that the romance would end because like they have nothing in common. But instead, Eddie returns to the UK, starts working. Dylan goes to travel Asia on his father's money, and yeah, instead of breaking up, they just kind of keep hanging on the thread. And like Eddie is pissed because like Dylan keeps traveling and not returning to her or talking about like the future of their relationship. And like eventually he returns, and they just like keep fighting all of the time. They have nothing in common. And then like there's the biggest conflict, which is Dylan's best friend called Marcus, who is like a totally just really messed up. Like he needs help. Like he probably has like several diagnoses and he needs therapy and like proper help, but at first he doesn't. And so he's like a completely insufferable, horrible person to everyone. And yeah, like that is the biggest like wedge in their relationship, because like every time like let's see like Addie and Dylan go on a date, and Marcus like texts Dylan then like, I need your help, like I got drunk, I need you to pick me up. And this happens like every single time like they do something together, and they fight about it all of the time. And yeah, it's just not a fun time. Like why are you together? Like break up already. Okay, and then like near the book comes some part that like I would like to forget, but unfortunately I can't, and it will be like a bit of a spoiler. Like it happens near the end of the book, so if you don't want to be spoiled, just skip ahead until the book is no longer on screen. Also, before I start, the spoilers, content warning for essay, so also skip ahead if you don't want to hear about that. Addie gets assaulted at work by a co-worker. Marcus was there outside of the building, takes a photo of that, sends it to Dylan, and basically builds up the narrative that Addie cheated on him. And then when Addie comes to Dylan and she tells him what happens, he doesn't believe her because Marcus said that it happened differently. I'm sorry, but whatever happened after that, I just think there's no going back from that. So that's the book, that's the rom-com, that's the romance. So needless to say, I was quite taken aback because Beth O'Leary previously wrote some good romance that I really liked, and it wasn't even like The Road Trip was a backlisted book. No, like it was actually published after the Fletcher. So yeah, I'm really not sure what happened there. But yeah, that is it. That is the worst book of my year. And then the second worst book of the year was The Christmas Castle in Scotland by Julie Kaplan. So Julie Kaplan is a romance author who is like widely popular in the Czech Republic. She has this long series of romance books that each of them takes place in somewhere else in Europe, and it's always like a cottage in some state. So yeah, it's a whole series. I haven't read any of the books previously. I've been meaning to try. I thought that maybe it wouldn't be exactly my cup of tea, but it would have been fine if the romance was actually good, but it wasn't. So in this book we follow Izzy, and she recently inherited a castle in Scotland, and along with her mother they are trying to convert it to a B&B. And so they're in this process of reconstruction, and her mother is very eccentric and chaotic and makes decisions without letting Izzy know, even though like Izzy is like the owner and the manager. So yeah, it creates these kind of frustrating situations. And yeah, she invites a guest to stay there before they are ready to open, and he's this author. I also forgot his name. Like, why do I always forget the male interest name? But anyway, let's just call him this guy. So yeah, he's a writer. He wants like a calm place to write. He gets there. He meets Izzy. It's a disaster. Like, he's rude to her. He's a grump, like not in a cute way. And they eventually like kind of become friends. And obviously it's a romance. But yeah, their dynamics like from the start was a pain to watch. Like he was rude to her. Like, I distinctly remember like one specific situation, like before they started dating, he was kind of like hazy on the details on what he actually does, wanted to keep it secret for a while, which is fine. But like yeah, they went on a trip to Edinburgh, which I really enjoyed the Edinburgh trip there, but that was like one day. And they went together to Edinburgh, and he didn't want to tell her like exactly what his business is there, which is fine. But Yeah, he basically is rude to her because like she's like, okay, so what are your plans for today? And he is rude, he is evasive, he is lying, and then Izzy eventually finds out like what the deal was, and she's like, oh my god, like of course you had to lie to me, like of course, like I'm so sorry. Like she starts apologizing for the fact like that he treated her terrible basically. And yeah, he didn't have to do that, like he really didn't. Like it would have been okay for him to say like, hey, I have this business in town and I would like to keep that private for now, or like whatever. Like there were other options than to lie and be rude, you know. Also the writing wasn't good, it was cheesy, there were some very questionable bits. I kept taking screenshots, so I will have some receipts. It also did that annoying thing that some contemporary romance books do, that there is like a mystery element, but like from the second they introduce it, it's clear to the reader what the mystery is, like what the solution is, but none of the characters can see it. And then like for the whole book we watch them like being completely clueless, and like in the end it's a great reveal, and I'm like, yeah, like it was clear. Okay, let's read some of the receipts because I think they're hilarious. She lifted her shoulders. There's no point worrying and making a fuss about things when you have no control over the situation. You just have to get on with it. Not all women are like that. His words were softened by his wry smile. So yeah, there was the I'm not like other girls, or like you're not like other girls going on. Another thing is that Izzy has low self-esteem. She previously was like in a situationship where the guy led her on and yeah, basically only came to her when he wanted. And she's still very much in the mindset for the majority of the book, like, oh my god, like I'm only Izzy, like why would a man want to do anything with me? More example of questionable writing. The quiet sincere admission jolted her that she, ordinary Izzy McBride, could have such an impact on gorgeous, successful, self-assured Ross Stradhelen. A little ember of feminine satisfaction burned fierce and bright in her heart. Also kind of a weird diet talk, like she gave Hattie's too slim form a speculative glance. You can afford the calories. This was said to a person that she just met, by the way. So I think you kind of got a glimpse into what the romance was like, what the dynamics was like, and yeah, I wasn't a fan. So that's all of the worst books I'm going to mention. I have to say it felt quite therapeutic to finally rant about it, and now, as I said, we can move on. So that is all for my 2024 reading wrap up. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts, and if you don't know what to comment, leave me a check mark emoji for wrapping up the year. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!